Where the hell do I even go to continue this? Get a suspicious phone call from our sister asking us to give her right hand back. Don't know if that was entirely a delusion or whatever, but god, there's some freaky shit going on here, man. The shop specializing in Gyro Froggy merchandise was known as Top Frog. That pun was likely an attempt to leave a good impression on its customer base. But Bond could only cite what he felt was akin to a dad joke. At present, Top Frog had about 20 branches established around the capital region, and it was showing no signs of slowing down in its expansion. Bond was currently visiting the very first branch situated in Harajuku, a place often cited as a paradise by the biggest Gyro Froggy fans. Bond, however, quickly came to regret this decision.
なあ、ゆあちゃん。帰っていいか?
He spoke in a low voice to Yua, the girl that had guided him to the stop.
でも、百瀬さんからゲロカエルンを買ってくるように頼まれてるんじゃ。
だってよ、おじさんだけ明らかに浮いてるからさ。
I want to make a comment about... You know what? No, I'm not even going to make that comment. Never mind. If you know, you know. Scores of young people happily trotted along Takashita Dori, but the vast majority passed by without even so much as glancing at the stop. Only a few people were standing inside the actual store. That is a lot of Gyro Froggies. In fact, aside from Bond and Yua, there were only 3 customers in total, all of which were high school girls. Due to Bond's unkempt appearance, walking along Takashita Dori with Yua inevitably served to portray him as a man of obscene intentions. He was just going to buy one of the plushes that were so popular nowadays, but that was what any stereotypical old pervert would say, a notion that brought down Bond's spirits considerably. Damn it, my public image is being ruined by this. On top of that,
なんか誰かに見られてるような気がするんだよな。
yeah, there's a few people watching you. People watching this video are watching you. I'm watching you. But you don't realize we're here. Or maybe you do. And you're playing the long con. You know about the existence of the fourth wall, don't you, Bond?
いい年して自意識過剰かもしんねえが。
あ、それ、私もです。最近、誰かの視線を感じて、たまに、すごく、怖くなるんですよ。
Wait, what?
なんで俺だけじゃなかったか?
Oh, so they're now becoming aware of the gaze that's on their
ゆあちゃん
backs.
の場合は心配だな。ストーカーに付け狙われてたりしたら。
そんな、怖いこと言わないでください。
I heard that, like, while there isn't really that a large amount of gun crime, like, stalking crimes are kind of crazy in Japan. Somebody can correct me on this, please. If I'm speaking out of ignorance, I'm sorry. I don't even know where I heard that little detail about stalking being, like, a pretty common thing in Japan. I think I might have been watching too many of those freaking crime dramas. Somebody can correct me on this. I apologize if I am speaking out of... I'm literally speaking out of a place of ignorance here.
安心しな。そんな奴がいたら俺が逮捕してやるから。
Also, hey, look at that, Yua. You have a police... Well, I mean, he's a detective, but you know. Resolving the topic with a grin, Bond stared fixedly at the various frog characters lined up along the shelves.
ところで、ゆあちゃんはここに来るのは何度目だ?
私も初めてです。
あんまり客がいねえようだが。静かなブームってやつなのか？
昨 金曜日から日曜日にかけてはすごく混んでるらしいです。
From Friday to Sunday.
つまり新作が発売されて週末の間だけですね。
And they need this to happen, or at least the bad guys need this to happen at very specific locations. For their theories and their tests.
特に金曜日はものすごく並ぶらしくて、学生のために18時に販売開始なんですけど、噂だとその行列だけで竹下通りが埋め尽くされるとか。
Holy shit! It is mind control just for these frickin' frogs.
週末だけね。ますます怪しいな。
Yeah. Bon went to pick up 2 of the teary Gyro froggies that it released last week, then headed to the register. Yua, not buying anything herself, followed behind him.
幸せ
Welcome, my dude! The store employee was a vacuous-looking man in his 20s. His hair had been dyed green and he had earrings in. If he were not behind the register, he certainly would not look like a clerk at the passing observer, or to the passing observer. At the very least, it was no outfit to be serving customers in. The employee stared at the two without relent, nor restraint.
娘さんへのプレゼントってやつっすか。
Huh?
いやそうなんだよね。
You're not my dad!
この子がどうしてもって言うから。まあ、たまには父親らしいことしてやらんとね。
Bon forced a smile as he looked ingratiatingly at the younger shop clerk. Yua's gaze fell to the floor as her face turned to one of shock. Nonetheless, she did not break the father and daughter charade. If it works, it works.
それより、このカエルに興味あるんだけど、ちょっと話聞かせてもらっていいかな。
Honestly, now that I think about it, this is actually a pretty good plan by Bon. Good on you, dude.
ゲコカエルンってそんなに人気あるの？
Playing the role of an inquisitive but supportive father, you know?
っていうかゲロカエルんすよ。バンバン人気あってやばいっす。
Turbo bonkers popular. That's a... I'm never going to use that, but I might add that to my dictionary.
ゲプカエルンね。いつも週末に新作が出るんでしょ。
You can't even get the name right.
ゲロカエルんだって言ってんじゃんマジ。っていうか新作とかそういう言い方マジやめてよ。新ガエルだから。
What? Being awfully defensive about these frogs.
金土日と超並んでバンバン売れるんでマジやばいっすよ。マジでバンバン売れるっすから。
Okay, that is like the 3rd time you've said turbo bonkers. I think no, fuck it. I retract that. I'm taking it out of my dictionary.
バンバンっすよマジで。
Number 4, you ruined it! Yua's brow narrowed in response to the young man. Bonker seemed to be a favorite word of the shop clerk, and something felt odd to her about it. Why is he emphasizing part of it so much? She wondered. It likely was not intentional, but it almost felt as if the young clerk was saying Bon's name in some capacity. Hold on.
これメイドインチャイナってラベルに書いてあるだけなんだけど、メーカーとかわかる？
は？メーカー？
Yes.
つうかゲロカエルにブランドとかねえし、ゲロカエルンはゲロカエルンじゃね？それで完結してね？おっさんマジウケんだけど。教えとくと、ゲロカエルンって作ってんじゃねえから。マジバンバン生まれてっから。
Stop. Like, congratulations, your sales pitch failed miserably. Now you got 2 customers that are like, is this guy okay? Unsurprisingly, the conversation was getting to be too much for Bon, leaving him on the verge of rupture. In order to prevent this, he swiftly ended the conversation, handed over the money, then left the store with Yua in tow. Okay, I need you to...
店員の教育がなってねえな。
Apparently they don't.
今時の若い連中ときたらもうろくに会話もできやしねえ。大体なんだあの格好はもう。
そうですね。
Yua came to an abrupt halt. She grabbed Bon's suit cup and pulled him to a stop as well.
見てください、バンさん。
どうした？
Yua was pointing at the direction of a white, 2-ton truck. It was pulled over on the side of the road, and a number of cardboard boxes were being unloaded from the cargo bed. The boxes were carried one after the other into the back of the Girufragi shop.
明日発売になるゲジカエルンの新作か。
The new Girufragapedes?
ゲロカエルンです。
ゆあちゃんよく見つけたな。偉いぞ。
いえ、そんな。
Usually the cargo bed of a truck would have a company name or logo emblazoned on it somewhere, but the one before Bon and Yua was completely blank. However, the cardboard boxes being carried inside had something resembling a company name written beside a few Girufragi illustrations.
有限会社振興。聞いたことあるかい？
Faithworks Limited. That's new. FWL.
ありません。
となれば困った時のももちゃん頼みだな。
We might have a little bit of a lead here. If this becomes more of a dynamic between Bon and Yua, I'm all for it. We parted ways with Misumi-kun at the station, then headed straight back to my base. The whole way there, it felt like I was stumbling my way through a nightmare. Nanami's face kept popping into my mind, and each time it did, her expression was different. Nanami had always been the type to wear her heart on her sleeve. When she was angry, she'd puff out her cheeks and pout, and when she was happy, she'd smile so wide it'd make even me embarrassed. Memories of all those different expressions made my heart thump again and again, almost painfully so. That phone call from before, the things she'd said. What the hell had they meant? That could only mean that the bandage wrapped around her arm when I'd seen her at school must have been... Where could she be now? At school? Or maybe she'd already gone back home.
たく、ほら、前見て歩かないと転んじゃうよ。
Supported by Rimi, the two of us came out on the roof. Oops, I forgot to save there. That was a bit weird.
どうしたの？
これから実家に帰ってみようと思うんだ。
Ooh!
これから？急だね。
He's worried about his sister. Yeah.
歩いても30分もかからないところなんだ。
Half an hour to get there on foot?
それでその
That's not too much of a walk.
一緒についてきてほしい。
As I made that request, I was so nervous, my heart felt like it would burst out of my chest. I was even somewhat surprised that those words had managed to come out of my mouth at all. Asking someone for something? It was something I'd never been able to do before now. Progress! Now, what's her response?
それって。
Rimi fell deep in thought, her expression looking troubled about something.
もしかして、ご両親に紹介するみたいな流れ。
Nani? Huh? I couldn't help but gape at the ridiculous statement Rimi had just blurted out.
だとしたら、心の準備がまだ。
違う。そうじゃなくて。
Suddenly, a high-pitched sound pierced my ears. What was that? One that sounded almost like a woman's scream. Uh-oh. A strong gust of wind swept over the rooftop. The air trembled. My vision was overwhelmed by a blinding sheet of deep crimson. With no idea what had just happened, I turned my face to the light. And when I looked on top of the container house, there she stood. Oh! Hi, Senna. What's up, girl? How you doing? Aoi Senna, D-sword in hand. The source of the light was her D-sword, glimmering against the sky, but something was strange. When I'd seen it before, Senna's D-sword had emitted a blue glow. This time it's a different glow? The sounds vanished. The wind stopped.
答える
Huh? Her voice was sharp, her glare cold. Her eyes glistened with unmistakable animosity.
これを書いたのはお前か
Huh? Bastard who wrote what? Oh! As she spoke, she thrust out a piece of paper with IR2 scribbled on it. My essay, for some reason, it was all scrunched up. Well, why did Senna have that? Why was Senna here? Illegal trespassing. Those words popped into my head, immediately followed by the realization that she had searched my room. But what for?
答えろと言っている
そうだけどだから
匠さん
Uh-oh. Next came the sound of Kozupi's inner voice. Oh! Hi, Kozue! She was behind Senna. She was clinging to Senna's legs and her face was peeking out from behind them. She had an urgent look on her face as she looked at me.
逃げる
Huh? Right as Kozupi screamed, Senna leapt from the roof. She held the sword high and... Rimi yanked my arm and I fell backward. I quickly looked back up and then saw the place I had been standing only moments prior. Senna's sword had hollowed out the floor of the rooftop. It had such insane destructive power, such tremendous sharpness that it didn't feel real. The impact had been great enough to destroy the concrete, and yet the sword didn't even have a scratch on it. Weren't D-swords supposed to be things people couldn't see, let alone touch? A certain term crossed my mind. Mutual realization? Oh, real boot, that was the word, sorry. Her sword had been real booted. Through the mutual recognition of the four people here, Senna's D-sword had gone from her delusion to reality. It was now a greatsword that could cut down a person for real. If Rimi hadn't pulled me away in time, I would have been bisected from head to toe by that beautiful sword of hers. It would have been instant death. Shivers ran down my entire body. Just now, Senna had unmistakably tried to kill me. Why? My head was overrun with confusion. The two of us had been eating crunchy coons together just the other day. Kozupi had been there with us. It was true that our relationship wasn't far enough for me to call us friends, and that even back then, Senna had been acting very scary the whole time. But even so, she shouldn't have hated me enough to suddenly come after me with a D-sword.
殺してやる
Okay, but why? Senna raised her head. She glared at me even more intensely than before. Her movements were incredibly fast, in spite of the fact that she was holding a gigantic sword. She kicked off the ground like she was starting a 500-meter dash. The tip of her sword scraped against the ground as she brandished it, closing the distance between us. She raised the weapon above her head. In that instant, my instincts worked out exactly what kind of situation I was in. She was serious. Senna was deathly serious. As I lay face up in a total heap, I let out a shriek. I couldn't run away. None of this made any sense. Getting a game over like this, desperately running away from Shogun, yet getting surprise attacked by Senna as a result of it. It was far too ridiculous, far too sudden. I didn't want this. I didn't want to die. I really didn't want to die. Right then, a single silhouette leapt above me and landed between me and Senna. When I looked to see who it was, I realized it was Rimi. She stretched her arms out wide to bar the way of the approaching girl. Was she putting her life on the line? Just to shield me?
どけ
But if she did that, she was gonna die. I didn't want that.
先畑さんには気をつけて。
Suddenly, what Kozubi had said before reappeared in my mind. Pale light leaped past Rimi's outstretched arms.
先畑さんはよくわかんないのら。
Is she about to real boot her weapon? Rimi.
タクに手を出さないで。
Unifying the overflowing light, she placed her arms together. The air warped and shook, coming seemingly from thin air. Feathers of shining light burst around Rimi and danced in the surrounding air. And then what appeared in her hands. Effortlessly blocked the fierce downward swing of Senna's gigantic sword.
タクを追い詰めないで。
It was all too graceful to be called a sword. All too imperial. Enough to easily be mistaken for the wings of an angel. Then I realized a certain fact. That she, Sakihata Rimi, was a gigalomaniac. Damn! Huh. Fascinating weapon choice. They're kind of like weird chakrams, but they extend, like, they're chakrams that have extended parts, like wings. Kind of like an angel slash Valkyrie. At least I'm pretty sure that's what the weapon type that she's wielding are. Chakrams, I think? Overwhelmed with shock, Aoi Senna looked at the face of the girl that stood before her. That winged sword that had so effortlessly blocked the attack of her D-sword was clearly a D-sword itself. If the girl she now faced was not accustomed to wielding a D-sword, she would not have been able to block Senna's attack with such perfect timing. Just sounds like Kozupi is just having a good time. Kozue stared down at the three people from atop the container house as if she was a spectator. Her dangling legs swung back and forth again and again. Sure acting carefree for someone who ruined my surprise attack, thought Senna, clicking her tongue inside her head. However, despite her moving thoughts, she did not remove her gaze from Rimi's eyes. Her opponent had a brooding look on her face. Nishijo Takumi moaned from behind Rimi, having sunk to the ground in a pathetic display. Senna's target was ultimately him, so she had no intention of fighting with Rimi. Besides, this is no manga, nor was it an anime, so a D-sword battle was not a particularly realistic thing to occur.
その男が何をしたか知っているのか IR2 という公式を
知ってるよ。
Oh! Oh! Senna had been interrupted by a quiet, sorrowful yet decisive response. Upon hearing that, Senna tightened the grip on her D-sword.
それなら
タクを覚醒させればもっと 大変なことになる。
Oh. So it really is a bad thing for him to awaken. Well, specifically, I guess in this situation. That's why Rimi has been, like, close to us this whole time. Like, Takumi is clearly, like, would it be right? No, it's not I don't think a flight risk. No, his existence itself is a risk, apparently. Like, they are aware that some crazy disaster is going to take place. But an even worse disaster will take place if Takumi awakens. And she is doing everything in her power to, like, prevent him from awakening. Because she apparently is aware of how catastrophically bad it would be if he awakened. See, now this gives much more motivation and much more understanding as to, like, why she's around him in the first place. She is literally there just to prevent the worst case scenario from happening. That's what I'm getting out of this, you know? This is interesting. But now we're getting some answers.
その前に殺す。
あなたには無理だよ。
Even if you try to kill him, you will never be able to? Senna decided that there was no point talking further. She brandished her sword in a yai stance. Before her, Rimi stood readily. Nishijo Takumi lay about 5 long strides away from her. At this distance, it would take 3 seconds to resolve things completely. Without hesitation, Senna rushed toward Rimi from the front. Aiming straight for the girl, she swept her D-sword toward her flank. Rimi attempted to block it like before, but Senna's strike had been a feint. Her sword passed through both Rimi's sword and body. Oh, she unreal booted it? She had released the real boot. At present, Senna's D-sword was no more than a delusion. It could touch nothing. It could cut nothing. It could kill nothing. But that had been her very aim. Due to having twisted her body to block the attack, Rimi's reaction would be slowed. During that time frame, Senna had already slipped past her and made it 2 steps closer to Takumi. She real booted the sword once again in an instant. This is a fascinating method of attack. Like, using your delusions to be like, okay, my sword is real. No, never mind, it's fake. It doesn't exist. Now it exists. So that makes me think, like, what would happen if, like, she literally took the sword, unreal booted it, like, this sword is fake, makes it phase through somebody's chest, and then she's like, this sword is real. What would happen? It's messed up to think about, but now that I'm kind of getting a grasp for how this combat system works, it's fascinating. It's morbid, but ooh! This is it. Takumi faced Senna with eyes of fear. She effortlessly real booted the sword. With her D sword that had once become real, she moved to pierce Takumi's heart.
Senna.
Who the hell's this? A figure flew past the corner of her vision. The instant she heard its voice, the girl, fiercely shaken by it, missed her target. The tip of her sword grazed Takumi's leg and stabbed into the concrete. Senna slowly raised her head. Then let out an angry growl. At the edge of the roof, their form lit by the backdrop of the setting sun, stood a single man, like a phantom among the corporeal. The homeless man? His face was pale. Deathly so. I knew you were important! The pupils that resided within his sunken eyes were surrounded by bloodshot whites. His head hung toward the concrete, his face without expression. The instant Senna saw the man, neither Takumi nor anything else mattered to her anymore. The man Senna had chased after without end. Her sole object of hatred. The man that had abandoned her and betrayed his family entirely. Oh! That very man stood right before her very eyes. Dad?
ようやく見つけた。
Senna took a step toward the man, gritting her teeth to hold back her overflowing hatred. She once again brandished her D sword. Another step forward.
どうしようもなかった。私はお前の母さんを生贄に捧げるしかなかったんだ。
Huh? Offer your mother as a sacrifice? What?
黙れ。
母さんの罪、とても安らかなものだったよ。だからセナ、安心してほしい。母さんのおかげで素晴らしい実験結果が出た。母さんは世界のために役立ったんだ。
What the flying fuck?
お前も母さんの功績を誇っていい。
黙れよ。
Blood rushed to Senna's head, rendering her no longer able to see anything other than the man that stood before her. She dashed. It happened in an instant. She flew at the man's breast, closed it between herself and it, then sunk her D-sword deep into its center. That was Senna's long-held desire. She had roamed Shibuya daily for the sole purpose of killing this man. She had dreamt of the day that she would kill him countless times. It had never left her mind.
Yatto, 母さんの仇を。
She went to remove her sword, which had granted the opportunity to move away from the man. But before her sword could come free, the man wrapped his arms around Senna and gently embraced her.
ヨゼ、気安く触るな。
Her entire body stood on end. Him doing this now after everything that had happened only served to nauseate her. Long ago in the distant past, the bond of family between Senna and the man had been severed. Even so, for some reason she was unable to comprehend. Senna could not bring herself to throw off the man. An inability that deeply surprised her. His warmth, his large chest, the deeply real presence of her father. Her hands dyed in red.
私はこんなの。
あなた
お前が望んだ妄想だ。
望んだ妄想だよ。
The delusion you wished for. When she heard that whisper, Senna immediately understood. Errors slipped into dead spots. Psychological attacks. Enchantment. Seeing someone's delusions. When Senna realized her mistake, it was already too late. She lost her balance, and together with the man, her body was cast off the roof. To Senna, the ground that lay 8 stories below looked oh so far away. Holy shit! Unable to comprehend what the hell was going on, all I could do was watch as the scene unfolded. Senna had suddenly run off to the edge of the roof, lost her balance for no reason I could see, and was about to plunge to the ground right this very second. Fuck! Her body was about to disappear beyond the edge.
落ちる。
I could only let out a whisper. I tightly closed my eyes. She had committed suicide. Senna had intentionally dove to her death. I didn't understand why. As if I could understand. She'd assaulted me out of nowhere. Serves her right. The girl had just been yet another enemy. No matter how long I waited, the resounding splat of her body hitting concrete did not come. I timidly opened my eyes and tried to see what was going on. Senna wasn't falling. Instead, she was on her knees. Rimi stood beside her. She was holding Senna's arm. Had Rimi saved her? Is she? Senna threw her D-sword away and started crying like a child. What the hell was even going on anymore? From my perspective, it looked like Senna had tried to die of her own volition.
辛い思いさせてごめんね。でもしょうがなかったの。
You made her see that? Rimi had done something to Senna. The usually bright and happy girl I was used to felt like an entirely different person now. A brooding face, sorrowful whispers, quivering eyes. The girl stood standing over there. It wasn't the Rimi I knew. A voice reverberated in my mind. Kozupi hadn't moved from her position on top of the container house, meaning she was still staring down at us.
もう終了だよね。もしもセナさんのことぐしゃばきってしようとしてるなら
Could you speak normally?
コズピ許さないぽん。咲畑さんのことバラバラにしちゃうよ。
I'm aware. A chill ran down my spine. Kozupi was speaking with her usual airheaded, anime-esque tone of voice, but the things she was saying were deadly serious.
もう終わり。もともと葵さんのことどうこうするつもりはないし。
Except make her confront her lingering resentment toward her father? I guess confront her lingering hate. This is just my experience with this. I just have so many fucking questions about this that my brain is like, I don't know. My brain is melting. My brain's gonna keep melting until eventually I'm gonna be awakening with a fucking D-sword. I don't need another sword. I've already got one.
タクの前から消えてくれるならこのまま解放する。
Never sees me again? Huh?
それは無理。
Impossible!
だってコズピーとセナさんとタクミちゃんはお友達だもん。ねそうでしょタクミさん。
To be fair, she literally just tried to kill me. I'm going through way too many emotions all at once right now. The gears in my mind refused to move. If someone told me that everything that had just happened was a dream, I'd probably believe them just like that. Come to think of it, why had Senna attacked me so suddenly? Was Senna my enemy after all?
お前のせいだ。
What? Senna raised her head as she sobbed. She made no attempt to wipe away her tears and stayed on the ground where she had fallen to her knees. Her gaze was fixed on me.
お前のせいで 私の家族は
What? What happened with your family is Takumi's fault? I was completely bewildered. She was launching nothing but raw emotion at me. What the hell did she think I'd done? I hadn't done anything. I hadn't screwed with anyone's lives, and I certainly didn't know a damn thing about Senna's family. I was harmless as could be.
無害だと
Huh? She read my mind.
お前が生み出したものが世界を滅ぼすかもしれないっていうのに
The monster? Wait, the monster I created? Destroy? The entire world? More Chuny shit again? I turned my gaze to Rimi for help, but she had her back to us. She stared vacantly at the darkening sky.
無駄だよ
Her figure, her voice. Was the sheer loneliness they gave off merely in my imagination?
タクは何も知らないから
With that statement, Rimi spoke as if she knew everything there was to know.
ふざけるな今渋谷を襲っている混乱は全部あの公式が発端なんだぞ
That formula. What he wrote? Formula?
それ以上言わないでタクは本当に何も知らないの
From the sounds of it, she was talking about me, but I couldn't follow the conversation at all.
公式ってこれのこと？
You mean on the paper? Can we get some explanation on this? Kozuki leapt down from the container house, holding my essay in her hand. I gotta do the Takumi voice here. This. She held out the back of the essay to us. I saw what I doodled on it back in elementary school. I think that's, yeah, IR2. The chaos infesting Shibuya right now had started from this? Talk about an absurd accusation. There was no way in hell some random doodle could affect anything, let alone at that magnitude. I just doodled the thing on a complete whim when I was bored or something. Probably. It was a long time ago, so I didn't remember it at all that well. But I did know there was no real meaning behind it. I just copied down the numbers I'd seen in a dream. It was a dream related to Whose Eyes Are Those Eyes, which I'd written about on the front. I'd use those words all the time since even before I'd written it, and whenever I had, it would all take shape in my dreams more and more. I suddenly swapped from Trunks back to the original Takumi voice I was giving him. Within one of those dreams were those numbers.
FUN の10乗かける
Fun to the 10th power
INT の40乗
times intelligence to the 40th
IR2
equals IR2. After a while, Senna wiped the tears from her eyes. Now they were a deep scarlet. While still on the ground, while still hanging her head down in regret, she formed a sentence.
この公式をお前が生み出した瞬間世界は分岐したんだ
The moment you created that formula, the world diverged? How could a formula make the world diverge?
ノア2に搭載されている中で最も秀でているのは中核システムに組み込まれたとある方程式です。
Oh. Some bigwigs got a hold of this formula made by a weird random kindergartner like, oh, this is genius!
これは人類史上未だ回答が見つかっていないとされているもの。
Huh?
ミレニアム7のうちの一つかね
What the fuck? Millennium Prize problems? A series of 7 math problems that were published in the year 2000 CE by the Clay Mathematics Institute in the United States. The 7 problems have never been solved prior to their publication, and a $1 million prize was promised to anyone that managed to solve any of the 7. As of 2007, only one of the problems have been solved, and there are 6 remaining. Is this real? This seems like one of those things that I would look up. Like, is this... No, for real, is this like... Is it... I may have to ask somebody much more familiar with this. Like, if it's... Like if it's an actual thing, I'm gonna be legitimately surprised. I'm definitely gonna have to look into this. Although, again, I'm gonna have to actually, you know, make sure that it's not actually a spoiler or anything like that, because if it is, oh boy, I'm gonna be sad.
億単位の懸賞金がかけられているという数学界で未だ未解決の7つの問題か。
The 7 still unsolved problems within the realm of mathematics, each with a $1 million prize.
いいえ、その7つの中には入っていません。
Ah, this is the 8th formula.
ですが、実はミレニアム7はもともと問題が8つあった。公開前に1つだけ削除されたのです。
Okay, the more I'm learning about this, the more I'm like, oh shit, this was probably an actual thing, but for this story they decided to add an 8th one. You basically take things that do exist in IRL stuff, and then you add something onto it to expand on it. It's... I think I've seen... I can't really come up with a good example, but I'm pretty sure this has been done before in some forms of fiction.
それがノア2に組み込まれている方程式だと。
削除された理由は？
世界に最悪をまき散らす可能性があるためというところです。
The possibility within to shower the world in calamity?
一体どのような数式なのだ？
基本相互作用における電磁気力を想定した共鳴現象。それを表す計算式です。
Oh! That's what fun and int are part of the formula. Fundamentals to the 10th power, interactions to the 40th power, equals IR2. In physics, this refers to any of the 4 basic forces that interact between elementary particles. These are electromagnetic interaction, gravitational interaction, weak interaction, and strong interaction. A theory that explains all elementary particles in the 4 fundamental interactions in a unified manner has yet to be established. If such a theory were ever finalized, it is predicted that it would be able to consistently explain everything from the subatomic scale to the far corners of the universe. Huh. You don't say.
これにより、特定の電磁パルスと受容体とが近接作用することで発現する未知の力が解明されました。各国が30年以上かけて開発し積み上げてきた沈黙の兵器の研究成果を一瞬にして過去のものとしてしまったんですよ。
その問題に回答を見つけた者は神になるに等しいというわけだ。
それを君が果たしたというわけかね。
それはとても不思議な場所から見つかりました。子供の落書きというね。
It was found in the most mysterious place, the scribblings of a child. Oh my god.
IR2 ノア2のいわゆるハードウェア部分はこの公式によって神に匹敵する能力を手に入れました。あとはソフトウェア部分に相当するギガロマニアックスのコードサンプルを集めればノア2は本格的に稼働し我々の望むもの全てを実現してくれるでしょう。
かのアインシュタインが現代に生きていればと思うよ。彼は高い能力を持つギガロマニアックスだったと聞く。
Einstein, a gigalomaniac? Oh shit.
家庭の話よりも現状がどうなっているかだ。ギガロマニアックスは世界中に数えるほどしかいないというではないか。大丈夫なのか？
すでに5人分のサンプルは確保しました。
ノア2稼働に十分な数は集まったようだね。
ならば結構。
ただサンプルが多ければ多いほどノア2の能力は向上します。特にどうしてもサンプルを採取したいギガロマニアックスの少年が一人いましてね。
だからといって計画の遅延は許されんぞ。
ノア2の本格稼働はいつ頃になりそうなのかね。
稼働前に最終実験としてサードメルトを行います。
The third melt. I'm going to assume that that weird thing that happened whenever we first went under the Yume Pass event with the white cloud. I'm betting you that was the second melt. And these guys just have this ability to cause these widespread disasters. That's what I'm getting from this at the moment. At least that's what I'm thinking.
また地震を起こそうと？
予測規模は？
That just answered my question, so it is called a fucking melt. Of course. Because unfortunately there are some people in power where they don't need humanity, so they kind of like sell it. So of course even fictional villains are just kind of like, we don't care about the lives that are lost as long as we do our goals.
想定では関東大震災と同レベル。
関東大震災クラスだと？
マグニチュード 7.9 だったかな。
現在の建築基準と免震対策レベルを考えれば町にかつてほどの大きな損害を及ぼすことはないでしょ
う。だが犠牲者の数はファーストセカンドの日ではなかろう。
Oh, no doubt. There's gonna be a lot of dead people.
およそ5000人ほどといったところです。
You just have no problem with the fact that they come it down to an estimation. I'm like, yeah, this disaster we're about to cause should give us roughly 5,000 people dead, give or take.
少なく見積もってですが、問題が？
責任は貴様が取るのだろうな。
腹でも切って死んでみせますか
？Tempting。
これが最終実験です。
Oh boy。
サードメルトが予定通りの成果を上げたとき、ノア2は完全なる完成を見る。世界の可能性は我らの手の中に。
There's always some old fool who's trying to rule the world.
この公式をお前が生み出した瞬間、世界は分岐したんだ。
分岐って。
Can we please get some better explanations now? What? Like with routes? This wasn't an eroge. Eroge.
Taku.
Please, focus, Taku. Just focus.
もう行こう。話聞く必要なんてないよ。
Or not. Rimi pulled on my hand, pleading me to go inside my room. Her demeanor oozed feelings of desperation. Rimi was afraid of something.
葵さんが言ってることは全部嘘っぱちだし。
Now you're becoming desperate. You desperately don't want me to awaken any sort of power.
嘘はそっちだろ。
嘘だ？
葵さん、もう帰って。タクの前から消えてよ。
Who should I believe?
たかが数式になんでそんなに目くじら立てるんだよ。
本当に何も分かってないのか。
That's what I've been saying this whole time!
アインシュタインが唱えた E=MC の事情、これが発表されたことで核兵器が開発されるという未来が生まれたように。
That's a hell of a jump. E equals mc squared equals nuke... Oh, wait a minute. An equation in the theory of special relativity as defined by Albert Einstein. It stands for energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. This equation shows that mass and energy are equivalent. That led to nuclear weapons? Oh. Ooh. Oh. 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 Okay, I think I get it. A simple formula, however, in the hands of the wrong people, would result in disastrous consequences.
お前の生み出した IR2 もまた E=MC の事情と同じ、いや、それ以上の影響力を世界に与えている。 IR2 は沈黙の兵器を現実のものとした。
Silent weapons. Ergo, potentially mind control and perception warping.
沈黙の兵器。
思考盗撮、視覚投影、五感制御。
There that is. Mind reading, visual projection, and control over the five senses. Kyokatsui Getsu. Wasn't that the patented technology Senna had told me about before? The one that she was investigating?
ギガロマニアックスは特別。いや、異常ではなくなる。
Soon they will be normal. Because if everybody's super, nobody will be.
これからはこの忌々しい力を誰もが自由に使えるようになるんだ。IR2 を元に作られた装置によってな。
And that will just lead to mass panic and horrific levels of chaos.
もっとも、その前に一握りの腐った連中に独占され、人々は気づかないうちに家畜同然の立場になるよう洗脳されてしまうだろうが。
Yep. That's usually how it goes. Sadly. The few of us who are like aware of this stuff, but really, what can we do? Although in this situation, how would I have known all this? Go on and on about this shit till the end of time. It still wouldn't change that I didn't know anything. Even if Senna was speaking the truth, I never would have intentionally tried to make something so horrifying. Not in a million years. It was just a doodle made by a kid. I hadn't done anything wrong.
それならそのアイアーム2は
IR2。
それはギガロマニアックスの力のことをキュッピーンって説明したものなんだ。
The creation of that formula gave rise to Gigalomaniacs.
やっぱりあのおじさんが言ってたのは本当だったのら。一番重要なのはその目、誰の目を生み出した少年なんだって。
Oh.
それってたくみちゃんのコートだったんだね。
Kozapi spoke in a carefree tone. I would never be able to act as innocent as she could. Just like me, Rimi also showed no signs of answering. Senna, meanwhile, opened her eyes wide and raised her head with a start. She rose to her feet, staggering. Why was her footing so unsteady? Did it have something to do with what Rimi had done to her earlier?
小杖、お前今なんて言った？
Wait a minute! Wait a minute. The things that oldie moldy guy said. Oh my god, she's met Shogun. Senna drew closer to the puzzled girl, pressing her for answers.
おじしゃんって誰のことだ
No.
あんたね、コズピーに理想度の大切さを教えてくれた人。東京に来て初めて話した人なの。なんかね、ふぎゅーって鼻つまみたくなっちゃう格好してて、へんてこなこと書いた板持ってたの。
Oh wait, no, it wasn't Shogun. I see oldie moldy, my brain defaults to freaking Shogun, but no. We actually saw the scene. She talked to the homeless guy. Ergo, Senna's father?
世界は終わるとかとか。
なんでそれを早く言わなかった。
そんなこと言われても。
あいつだ。やっと見つけた。
And now we're gonna do this again. Me, Rimi, and Kozupi, the three of us, unable to understand what Senna meant, could only watch with confusion as Senna's blood-curdling demeanor boiled and bubbled.
私はやっとあいつを殺せる。
Oh boy, here we go again. Leap from the building. Oh,